Happy Friday, First Church and friends. This is Carolee Owens, your minister of music. You know, I didn't think I would be preparing devotionals for this length of time, but I am grateful to spend this time with God and with you each week. While learning about the lives of some of our favorite hymn writers, I have felt God's presence and felt enriched with the words and melodies they created with God's inspiration. Today we will explore God Leads Us Along. The lyrics of this song are pertinent to any time in our lives. George Young takes us from shady green pastures to valleys in the darkest of nights, showing us God's grace is always there and leading, no matter what life brings. I am reading from Then Sings My Soul by Robert J. Morgan. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. Psalm 23, 2 and 3. George Young, a carpenter, and his wife dedicated their lives to following the Lord wherever he would lead. He does the leading, they often said, and we do the following. God led them to the rural Midwest, and they traveled from church to church in revival efforts. Their finances were always tight, but through the many years, we never went hungry, Mrs. Young said years later. Oh, sometimes we didn't have too much of this world's goods, but we always had so much of Jesus. Finally, they saved enough money to buy a small piece of land on which George built a cottage. Though small, it was the fulfillment of a life's dream. And when they moved in, they dedicated the house to God and sang the doxology. But sometime later, when the Youngs were away on a ministry trip, a thug who had been offended by George's preaching set the house afire. Returning home, the Youngs found a heap of ashes. All their worldly goods and cherished possessions were gone. As George gazed at the ruins, he recounted the precious possessions fire could never destroy: his family, his relationship with Christ, his ministry, his eternal home. There and then, the words to God Leads Us Along began forming in his mind. Within a few days, he had written all 3 stanzas. Years later, Dr. Harold Lalanus, seeking to track down George's widow, drove to the small Kansas town where she resided. Stopping for directions, he was alarmed to hear that Mrs. Young was living in the run-down country poorhouse. Lalanus was deeply troubled that the widow of the author of such a hymn about God's guidance should spend her final days in the poorhouse. But when he finally found her, Mrs. Young explained, "One day, God took my sweet husband home. Oh, how I missed him, for we had always served the Lord together. In my heart, I wondered, where will God now lead me? Dr. Lalanus, God led me here. I'm so glad he did, for you know, about every month, someone comes into this place to spend the rest of their days. And Dr. Lalanus, so many of them don't know Jesus. I'm having the time of my life introducing them to Jesus." Dr. Lalanus, isn't it wonderful how God leads? Please pray with me. Dear God, in this time of separation, help us to find new ways to connect and share your love with others. Show us how to move forward by following your guidance and looking for ways to serve you. Please restore our souls, refresh our hearts, and lead us to do our best when life becomes difficult. We know bad times lead to good times. May we use this time to learn more about you and share what we have learned with others. In Jesus' most holy name I pray. Amen. I hope you will join us online this Sunday for our online service. You will be blessed as you hear God Leads Us Along, sung by Donna Baton, Ted House, and Ashley Powell. Take care and see you soon.